Codemotion.
So first of all, welcome everyone. I'm so amazed that there are so many people coming, because it's a second talk today about AngularJS, and we've got one more time the room full of people, which is pretty amazing for the framework, because I started with this 1.5 years ago, and it was virtually unknown. I mean, there was not much going on around Angular. So today, I've got basically one message to send about Angular, that it is not yet another framework on the JavaScript framework scene, but it's kind of different philosophy of writing web applications for a browser. So you know, this is the message I want to send. I will be kind of keep repeating this, and we'll try to prove that I'm right. Before I start, I will tell something about me in a second, but before this, I would like to know something about you. So, I would like to know who kind of played with Angular, who knows, was doing some simple applications, so whatever.
With Angular?
Yeah. Who was kind of playing with it, and okay, so quite many people. And who was on the previous talk today? I mean, who Okay, so you want to kind of really repeat this stuff. Okay, so just a few words about me, so I kind of sound more credible for you. So first of all, I really kind of believe in open source movement, but not open source I'm going to GitHub or somewhere else, I'm grabbing free libraries, I'm using it, and I'm happy. I really believe that participating in open source, we should kind of give back something to the community that we are, because we are kind of benefiting enormously from all the open source stuff. And so here's my gravatar on that I'm using on GitHub and some other accounts, so you can see. So this is how I got involved with AngularJS. Basically, I kind of was searching for a framework for myself. Bumped into AngularJS, and I didn't want to look anywhere else. And in the process of learning AngularJS, I kind of started to participate, get involved with the community. Then at one point, I got a proposal to write a book about it. So I was crazy enough to agree. And this is how I kind of got in touch with the AngularJS team. And November last year, I got enormous privilege of being a committer on this project, which I think at the moment there are only 2 or 3 committers from the community outside of Google participating to the project. So one more thing, I'm also trying to get involved with the Angular UI project. I don't know who heard about Angular UI. I mean, okay, so it's not totally unknown. This is fine. So it's for ones who didn't know about it. It's just kind of community-driven sub-project that I'm providing commonly used components for AngularJS. So I will kind of quickly skip the slides, because some of them, there was a talk in the morning, and mine is kind of similar. So once again, there will be the same message over and over again. We've got Angular that is not trying to be kind of make yet another framework that will improve things slightly. It really tries to kind of take a different look at how we write web applications in a browser. And one of the first things that Angular is kind of acknowledging, saying, okay, so web was created some years ago. It looked like this in 1996, which was great. So it wasn't maybe very sexy, but it had one wonderful thing, which was declarative HTML, right? I mean, here it's so obvious what's going on here, right? I mean, we can immediately see. Sorry, we can immediately see if I remove the mouse. We can immediately see that we want to have this hello world to get be painted in a stronger way. But it is really declarative, and what it means is that we really don't tell browser how to render it, right? I mean, we're just saying, I want it to be stronger, but we are not saying take 5 pixel or whatever. It's just browser is figuring it out with the help of CSS and so on. But then, from 1996, obviously things have changed. and we're starting to write like full applications in a browser, right? And it's not a screenshot from Microsoft Excel, God forbid, is the Google Docs with my book schedule, which shows that I'm late already, which is not good. But anyway, like even if we ask our, like, our users are asking us to write like applications like this, the browser is fundamentally the same, right? The set of technologies that we are using is fundamentally the same. So I guess if we like it or not, like our beloved browser is our development platform, for good or for bad, and especially with the mobile devices, we've got the multitude of web browsers. But it's not kind of the easiest development platform, and we know it all. We've been through the pain of it, and it's not even about like that we need to deal with different technologies and the different versions of those technologies, because this is kind of fine. We are all polyglot programmers. We need to deal with different technologies. It's not even like about the browser incompatibilities, and I think like everyone kind of suffered the fair share of it. But it is like kind of, the problem is that the browsers are still in this paradigm from 1996 or before, right? I mean, with the hyperlinked documents, and we are using this platform to write like serious applications. So as the applications got more and more dynamic, like something went seriously wrong, right? I mean, like from this very declarative HTML where everything is obvious, we went into this JavaScript. So this is actually, I think, the same code snippet from that was here in the morning. But I mean, it just shows that like something went really, really bad along the way. So once again, jQuery, I think it kind of needs to be mentioned, because jQuery solves like enormous problem, or at least like kind of elevated it greatly, which is browser incompatibilities. But the funny thing is, like, I mean, jQuery is like absolutely like stunning library. Like the amount of effort that it went into it, like, and what it did for communities. Like, I think it's the most used library on the net. So I mean, it's just the work that was done there is just like enormous. Like it's like really, really hard to appreciate it even. But like, if you come to think about it, it's just fixed the browsers, right? I mean, kind of fixed the APIs that we've got in the browsers. It kind of did something that the browser vendors kind of didn't manage to do, right? I mean, just kind of, fix the things. So it didn't change how we still kind of think of low level, like kind of DOM manipulations, right? Go there, grab this element, move it here, and so on, which is probably not the most productive way of developing. So I think that like kind of state of the web platform is like a bit like this. We are kind of, as web developers, we are kind of superheroes, right? We need to fight the devil, and like every day, like a little hack here, a little hack there, and like the funny thing for me is that like there are a number of kind of techniques that we are using every day that are pure hacks. Like if you come to think of like JSON-P, right? I mean, just like everyone is doing cross-domain requests with JSON-P, but it's a hack, right? I mean, it's a very smart hack. I mean, just like very, very nice. Like you have to kind of think about it and invent it, but it's a pure hack. And kind of web browser is full of those hacks. So then comes Angular, and it's kind of having a kind of different take at the problem, looking at it from different angle and saying like, let's think of a browser as the development platform. Like, what should have changed in a browser to make it kind of decent development platform? And like I really like those two quotes from the AngularJS committers. So Mishko, who originally created the framework, he's saying like Angular is what a browser would have been like if it was specifically designed for building Ajax applications. So this is this like how to kind of turn the browser into a decent development platform. And the other quote, it's from Igor, who's kind of tech lead on the project. There was like there are often discussions saying like, okay, this framework is like implementing this pattern on that pattern. Is it MVC or MVVM or MV something? And at one point, like Igor kind of cut it down and say like, okay, let's declare AngularJS like MVW, where W stands for whatever, right? So I mean, so it's just to say that like Angular is trying to be really different, and it is really different as we are going to see. So it's like, and so it is different in a probably disturbing way. So we've got this Angular that tries to be kind of better thing, kind of better development platform for us. But what does it mean in practice? Like how AngularJS is turning a browser into a better development platform. So first of all, like I think this is the kind of something we call two-way data binding is something that like everyone coming to Angular is seeing at the beginning, and this is kind of this wow effect, I guess, like that that you can have an input box like this. You can start to type welcome Rome, right, and it gets like automatically updated. So what you see in the, I don't know if you can kind of read this code snippet without any problems, or is it visible? Like, okay, cool. So this code snippet is the whole application, right? I mean, there's no kind of hidden code. This is all you need to write to kind of have this automatic display change. And for me, this was kind of moment of revelation, right? Because like instead of downloading jQuery and like waiting for the download even and like and other things, I could simply write this. And I think the only missing thing is like the reference to the library itself, which is, I would say, tiny for what it does, because the minified and gzip version of Angular has 28 Ks, if I remember correctly. So you just need to include 28 Ks, and then you can start benefit from all the goodies. So first thing that I would like to kind of bring your attention to is this line, which we are back to this 1996 where we had declarative HTML, right? I mean it looks exactly like it used to look like, only that we kind of changed this fixed part with the dynamic one. So this is one part of this one-way data binding, right? And this is basically what all the templating languages, all the templating frameworks are doing. Like, you take your template, you take your model, you mix the two together, and you get the output, put it as the inner HTML, and you've got the effect. But Angular does one more thing. So it not only kind of outputs things from the DOM to the DOM, but it also reads things from the DOM. So as I type, right, I mean this input thing gets propagated to the model. So like two more things about this little code snippet. So first of all, you can see that those kind of fancy attributes here. So the AngularJS works with the live DOM, right? I mean, it is not a templating language as we see here. It's just like not like one-off rendering. It's really working with out of live DOM. And another thing that it extends the DOM with those fancy attributes. And as you heard, if you've been on the previous talks, in AngularJS world they are called directives. So this, we can see three directives here. First is this ng-app, which is basically bootstrapping the whole application, right? This is the whole thing to say, dear Angular, take this div and kind of turn it into dynamic AngularJS application. Then we've got another directive called ngModel, which does this magic, like takes the value from the input field and puts it into the model. And as soon as the value is in the model, we can immediately kind of render it here with the mouse is horrible. We can immediately render it with the interpolation directive. And at no moment I had to say like, okay, if you press a key, then like put this somewhere in the model, then render it back. I mean, this is the whole code. And for me, it's great. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, this is how the web development should be, right? I mean, and this is, let's see another example, maybe more complex, of the, let's say, Twitter-like message box, right? Where we can type things and it's not exactly Twitter-like, but okay. So this is those kind of forms. This is what we do as the web developer quite often, right? Like dynamic forms. I mean, if I change something, then something else should change. I mean, something should be highlighted, something should be changed, and so on and so forth. So this is great part of our. This is where the great part of our development time is spent. And it turns out that with AngularJS, doing those things is extremely easy. And just like before I walk you through this example, I would like to kind of, I don't know, show how many things are going on here, right? Because as I type, the number of remaining characters here gets changed. This button send also kind of is changing its state from the disabled to not. The colors get changed here, right? So even in this very simple example, there are like plenty of things going on. And there are plenty of controls that we need to coordinate together. And like what Angular is doing to us is saying like, okay, you should, as the developer, focus on the model, then describe your UI in the declarative way, and I will do the rest. So let's go through it once again. So we should like focus on the model, right? I mean, just on manipulate our data, something that has value for us as developers. Something here, the value is like messages, right? That we are typing and we are sending. So our model is basically a set of messages, like array of simple messages. And the wonderful thing about AngularJS is that it works with the straight JavaScript object as your model. You don't have to, like, to benefit from all this machinery, you don't have to do like any special tricks. I mean, you can work with the straight JavaScript. Being this a normal object or JavaScript array, like the Angular will pick it up, will understand it. There's absolutely nothing you should be doing. So what is happening here? So we've got this model that is in pure JavaScript, and we are saying like then define a declarative like your UI in the declarative way. And what does it mean in practice? So first of all, I'm saying like, okay, I want this remaining part. Sorry, I want this remaining part to be displayed, and as you can see, is as easy as just calling a function, right? I mean. And this function is defined somewhere here, right? But the best part is that I don't have to call this function. I mean, I don't need to tell Angular, like, now is time, now I press the key, you know, like, just please repaint the screen. I don't have to do this. I mean, Angular will figure it out for me. Next thing, which like really means, what does it mean to have declarative UI? Let's have, oh God, this mouse is. Let's have a look at this ng disable directive, which basically kind of enables and disables a state of a button in response to some condition, right? So here I'm saying like, if my message does not have valid length, let's disable the send button. And the great thing about this thing, the great thing here is that this code change is really localized. I mean, this is only one place where I'm saying like disable this button. I don't need to touch the routine that's responsible for this key press, right? I mean, it's not like traditional. I would do like on key press, like this, recompute things and like find me the DOM element and just kind of change the state. This is very localized, which means it's like so easy to add another elements on the page that will be working from the same DOM. So you can see also like this changing a color here is also as easy as using another directive ng class, which basically is saying if the message has a valid length, add me the success class. So it turns out that this kind of two-way data binding with the declarative approach to UI, it kind of massively cuts down the number of code you have to write as the developer. So there is anecdote actually how the, well, actually it's true, but how the Angular was born as part of the Google project. So there was a project at Google that was running for 6 months. I think, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 people working on this project. And something like around 17,000 lines of code were produced. And things were not going super well. And Miško was, well, brave enough, let's say. And he came and said, like, OK, I can redo the whole application, the 6 months effort, in 2 weeks with AngularJS. And he missed the target. He redid it in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. Right? I mean, and this is kind of, you know, shocking, and like 3 weeks, like, versus 6 months effort. But it's really, we keep hearing those things like over and over again. If you kind of, you know, hanging out on the mailing list of AngularJS, from time to time there are people coming and saying like, oh, I ported my application from frameworks XYZ, and, you know, I cut down the, you know, 10 times the number of lines of code and so on and so forth. So I guess, like, we as the developers, we didn't realize how much of this boilerplate code we are writing till you actually can experience this magic of Angular. So this is, I guess, this two-way data binding is just like really something already revolutionary, right? I mean, this is something that makes our life considerably easier. But actually, there is like thing that is far more cooler, like which is directives. But I mean, I kind of like to think about like AngularJS like as HTML compiler, because it really works with the live DOM, and it can learn, like, kind of teach the browser to interpret new elements, give behavior to these new elements. And this is like something totally amazing for me, because like we've got HTML4, we've got HTML5 that introduced new tags. And so we are happy because we've got kind of richer vocabulary. But the funny thing is that with AngularJS, you can do those things today. You can kind of redefine HTML for you. And maybe like the blink tag is not the best example what you should be doing, right? Because this blink tag was removed from HTML, and for good reason. So you can introduce it, but I mean, I'm not suggesting that you should be doing this. But actually, you can do cool stuff that is not blinking. So you can define your own components. So I don't know how, like, people who worked with GSP tag libraries or like similar technology, that kind of will recognize this model. So basically, I can define an alert directive, which should be outputting Twitter's Bootstrap alert or whatever your favorite CSS framework. So this code below is an original HTML for Twitter Bootstrap, right? So I can replace it with something else. And why to replace it? Because like maybe this example is not so stunning, but there are like 2 benefits of this replacement. First of all, like I can define my own vocabulary. I mean, I can remember that if I want to display alert, I'm writing alert, right? This is straightforward. I mean, you might kind of call it whatever you want, but like for me, alert, I understand alert. Otherwise, I have to remember this CSS, this HTML plus CSS snippet from Twitter Bootstrap. And like you can say, okay, you can Google it, and like you can copy paste, no problem. But like, you know, I want to speak my own language. And there's another benefit that is kind of probably more obvious as your application grows, is that you remove code application from HTML, right? Because like maybe here I'm not removing a lot, but still, like if I have to display alerts over and over again, I don't have to push the whole HTML over the wire. I kind of can define a template for alert in AngularJS and have, you know, kind of smaller markup. So not only I can define my own language, but I'm also reducing the amount of HTML that I'm pushing through the to a browser. So another example of the same approach, because alert is static, right? So I'm just, it's kind of displaying it and forgetting about it. But actually, I can define directives that have some behavior, and pagination is kind of such an obvious thing, right? I mean, this is something we are doing over and over again. We are paginating, like, you know, results all the time. So once again, I'm not only getting this benefit of my own vocabulary that I can understand and like remember, but also I'm getting the benefit of this dynamic element that reacts on clicking on the buttons. It will, you know, update the state of the previous next buttons and so on and so forth. But it's even better than this, because with AngularJS directives, you can define a template. So you can say, when you will be rendering this pagination, use this template here. And inside the template, you can use all the other directives that you would normally use in the web application, right? So it's kind of recursive thing. And why you would like to use your own template? Well, it's very simple. Let's say I'm starting off writing my directive, or let's say there are two paginations here. One is using like Twitter Bootstrap, and another is like using Foundation. So the templates for those are almost the same, but they are not exactly the same, right? So if I start by doing all those paginations in my application, by just copying and pasting everywhere this HTML, I'm not only duplicating code, I'm not only not having my own vocabulary, but I'm duplicating and hard coding things. So when one day my boss is coming and saying, you know, Twitter Bootstrap is great, but everyone is using Twitter Bootstrap and we don't want to look like everyone else, like change me to something. And if I kind of hard coded it everywhere, I'm kind of in a big trouble. So really by using this directive, I can work on the higher level of abstraction. So there's yet another example of, like, you know, you can go like this forever. Like this is accordion. So once again, I can define my own vocabulary. I can name things as I want. I can kind of remove the code application from HTML, and I can have dynamic directives working behind. So I've mentioned the AngularJS project. So as part of it, we started an effort called AngularJS Bootstrap. So this is the directives for using Twitter Bootstrap markup, but written in the native Angular as the native AngularJS code. So you can go to this repository and actually see the code behind directives. So I will not be showing you like the code, how to write those directives, because there's like impossible to teach you like writing directives in 20 minutes. I guess the directives are kind of the most complex part of AngularJS. But like this is this enormous benefit like of having this higher level of abstraction. So once again, two-way data binding. Everything works from the model with the declarative UI. I've got this awesome like directives. So I'm already sold. Like AngularJS is already great, but it kind of gets better with time, and it's really fascinating because I've been like using AngularJS for 1.5 years, and there are still moments when like opening like, oh yeah, this is great. I mean, there are so many layers in it. So so in the morning, it was mentioned that like kind of testability is great part of AngularJS story. So I mean, really, Miško is crazy about testing, and the whole team is crazy about testing, and for a good reason, and I really like kind of buying into it. And the dependency injection that is kind of baked in the framework is this testability enabler. So when I saw like dependency injection in the JavaScript framework, I was like, oh yeah, great. I mean, finally someone kind of thought about it and did it. And the dependency injection is great for two reasons. It's not only like kind of testability enabler, but it also like, I mean, you can switch services for testing. Like you can switch your service with the double to enable testing, but you can always also do it for the runtime, right? So like you can substitute internal services of AngularJS. So here's the code snippet that is doing HTTP GET request, and you can see that HTTP service get injected. So if for some reason you don't like built-in, you can substitute it for your own. It's probably unlikely that you will do this because it's kind of bigger thing, but the log, I mean, I kind of saw people constantly doing it, right? Because the default implementation is simply logging things in a console, but I saw people like over and over again saying like, okay, if there is a JavaScript error, I want to send some message to the server and log it on the server. So once again, this is a great testability story, but it's also great for composing the application. And I don't want to even talk about things like that it's complete framework. Right? I mean, like I was focusing during this talk on this rendering machinery that is thing that's kind of probably the most attractive about AngularJS. But it's a complete framework, right? I mean, you can really include the library itself and start writing web applications. You don't need to include, I don't know, you don't need jQuery, you don't need underscore. Like, okay, underscore you might want. But I mean, there are like really, there's complete set of tools. So takeaways, like great, we will have time for questions, which is really good. So like the things that I would like to, first of all, like I would like you to try out AngularJS, because like, it's impossible to sell the framework, even if I've got nothing to sell, but it's kind of impossible to get excited about it until you try it and you see how things are easy. So like the first message is, try it at home and like see how it fits, especially if you've been working with different frameworks. But like kind of, things that are really kind of marking points about AngularJS is this two-way data binding that considerably cuts down the amount of code that you have to write. This two-way data binding, it kind of feels like automatic refresh, right? I mean, like the AngularJS figures out where to repaint DOM. I don't need to tell it like, find me this element and like repaint it right now. It will figure it out. And then you can redefine HTML. You can create like small widgets like this, but you can also create bigger things. Like if I have a toolbar, you can create. If I'm reusing the toolbar between applications, I mean you can create your toolbar or login form, like like kind of unleash your imagination and define your custom HTML. And all those goodies are kind of, built on something solid. It's not like framework that is patched together. If you are interested after the talk, I can show you the continuous integration server of AngularJS, where on each check-in, there are like a massive amount of tests are being run on several browsers. So this is like kind of, we are not building on sand. There's something solid behind. But just word of warning, like it is different. I mean, it aims to be different. It aims of like changing how the browser behaves, but it also is different. And like, especially I kind of noticed that people who were used to like jQuery, it's really different programming model, right? Because like with jQuery, you were explicitly getting your hand on the DOM element and manipulating them. Here's like Angular kind of, taking away this from you and kind of, taking control. So this is kind of disturbing. And this is not uncommon to see this roller coaster. This is like, I love this graph. It was drawn by one guy from the community. And this is quite common feelings about AngularJS, right? I mean, you kind of got hooked at the beginning. You love it with this kind of two-way data binding. And then you need to learn more. And then you understand more. And then you are like getting even more excited. And you are like, you know, hitting those ups and downs. And it's really, I saw it kind of over and over again. I've been through it, and I don't know where I am in this graph. I hope somewhere, like, there is not like a, you know, huge dump, like, waiting for me. But it is kind of, you know, you're kind of uncovering layer by layer. So this is all I've prepared. So we've got at least 4 minutes for questions.
I have a provoking question.
Okay. Actually, time is up. So.
I already use frameworks like Backbone or ZK, and I found that one point of advantage in Backbone and jQuery, comparing with this one that I see right now. So I don't have any previous knowledge about this, but they just don't clutter the HTML with logic. While I see the HTML with AngularJS is a little dirty.
Okay, so like let me repeat the question. So this is about like the that other frameworks or jQuery or like even vanilla JavaScript will not kind of clutter your HTML with custom tags, like specifically with logic, right?
Yes, because I see, for example, this ng class, which has some.
Yeah.
I mean, it's JSON.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard this. Like it's not. It's brought up, not very often, but it is brought up, and like, what can I say? It never kind of disturbed me personally. So I guess there is a matter of personal taste, but this logic needs to go somewhere, right? I mean, even if you see this ng click, so I mean, when I'm clicking, I need to select the page, right? This logic needs to go somewhere. Either you put it here or you put it in JavaScript, registering a callback in a JavaScript. And I kind of like it better here. I don't know, and like I really don't know what to answer. Like there are discussions. I mean, we can talk after. Well, I can point you to some discussions around it, and it's not. I mean, the thing I would say is like UI logic. I mean, it's not your business logic, right? You are not kind of changing the model of the world here. You are just changing kind of how your UI behaves. So so I don't like for the provocative questions. I don't have like answer that that would smash your provocative question. But like just try it. Learn to love it and. Okay, so like indexing of pages, it's like single-page web application. So I guess this is something people are struggling with, no matter what the framework. So like Angular, I can only reiterate what was said in the morning. Like there are people like trying different tricks, like pre-generating HTML and like serving something else to Google or other indexers. And like I honestly, there's no good answer that like AngularJS doesn't bring anything new here, right? I mean, apart from aggravating the problem because kind of pushing this architecture into a browser. And accessibility, there's also nothing kind of specific that would make life easier here, right? This HTML, so I mean, so it doesn't do things easier, it doesn't do things worse as compared to others. More questions?
Being a single-page application, how does it work with cache? If I'm in server-side cache, can I cache something produced by AngularJS?
Okay, so the question was like how AngularJS like works with caching, or what it changes in respects to caching. So I guess there are like kind of several points to discuss here. So first of all, like with those architectures, normally you've got like kind of fat client in a browser. It's not fat with AngularJS, believe me, it's not fat. But you've got this type of architecture where you basically got the logic sitting in a browser and then exchanged only data with the server. So obviously, I mean, if you know that your data are not like changing, you can like cache it on the server. Also, like AngularJS have cache, like the cache factory, something called cache factory. So you can also like cache it on the client. Okay, it's a good slide because like this partial, this snippet of HTML is like a piece of template that you can have like kind of not bundled with the application, but download it on demand. So this will be cached in AngularJS. So I mean, in short, you can cache things on AngularJS side, and there is a service for this. So I don't know if it answers your question, but
Yes.
okay. More questions, please. I mean, anyway, if you kind of don't kind of shout in the room, I will try to hang around and like feel free to pass by, and so we can talk. More questions? No questions? If no questions, so like thank you for coming. I mean, okay, yeah, okay.
Just one more. Can exist different teams for the same data structure, for the same object? Can exist different teams for the same pagination, for example? Maybe in 2 pages I want the same structure but with different...
Yeah, okay, so it kind of, like taking this example, it really depends how you write your directive, right? Because actually this directive, that is real directive from the Angular UI project, it has the template, this one shown here, that is kind of global for all paginations, but you could kind of easily change it so it gets overridden for certain pages. And I guess it's always a question like how consistent I want to be, because this is something also great of abstracting HTML, that you kind of get consistency, right? I mean, I know that I'm dropping this paging logic that looks like this, and I know that it will look the same across the whole application. Like, it's not like one of the developers will kind of mistype here something, not add one of the classes and so on. So, but I mean, it's kind of up to you how the directive will be written. Okay, like once again, thanks for coming. I'm really excited to so.
Codemotion.